Welcome to Online Math. This lesson is about square roots and square numbers. Let's begin by looking at what square numbers are. A square number is a number that has been multiplied by itself. So let's take a look at the examples together. If we have 1 and we are squaring 1, this means we're doing 1 times 1, and therefore 1 times 1 or 1 squared is equal to 1. If we're doing 2 squared, then again we need to multiply by itself, so it would become 2 times 2, and that's 4. 3 squared means we're doing 3 times 3, and that is 9. 4 squared means 4 times 4, and that is 16. 5 squared is 5 times 5, and that equals to 25. 6 squared is equal to 6 times 6, and that is 36. And it can go on. So what that means is 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and 36 are examples of square numbers. And that 1 squared is equal to 1, and 2 squared is equal to 4, and 3 squared is equal to 9, and 4 squared is equal to 16, and so on. So these numbers here, these guys are called square numbers. So how do we find the square root of a number, and what does it have to do with squaring a number? Well, we first need to begin by looking at a sign called the square root sign. So this sign that I just drew, this is called the square root sign. And to find the square root of a number, we know that it has to be the opposite of squaring a number. So for example, if we were to find the square root of 9, we first need to think of what times what makes 9. And this number that we come up with have to be the same number. And we know that 3 times 3 gives us 9. So 3 times 3 is 9. And that means that 3 squared is equal to 9. So to find the square root of 9, we'll say, what is the square root of 9? And we just saw that it's the opposite. So finding the square root of a number is the opposite of squaring a number. And to find the square root of 9, this has to be the opposite of squaring a number. So we know that it's going to equal to 3. So the square root of 9 equals to 3. Let's take a look at the other example. How to find the square root of 81. Step 1 is to figure out what times what makes 81. And so what 2 numbers times to make 81, and these 2 numbers have to be the same number. So we know that the answer is 9. 9 times 9 equals to 81. And that means that 9 squared equals to 81. So to find the square root of 81, this has to be the opposite of squaring a number. And we just figured out that 9 squared makes 81. And so the square root of 81 has to be equal to 9. Let's take a look at the example questions together. The first one we have is square root of 25. So let's think of 2 numbers that'll times to make 25. And we know that the answer is 5. So 5 squared equals to 25. And the opposite of squaring a number will give you the answer to finding the square root of a number. So the square root of 25 is 5. Second one, what is the square root of 36? So what times what makes 36? And the answer is 6 times 6 equals to 36. And so 6 squared makes 36. So the square root of 36 is equal to 6. square root of 49. What times what, or what squared makes 49? And the answer is 7 squared makes 49 because 7 times 7 is 49. So the square root of 49 equals to 7. Next question we have square root of 1. So what times what, or what squared makes 1? And the answer is 1 times 1, or 1 squared is equal to 1. So the square root of 1 is equal to 1. What do we do if we see a problem like this, where it has a problem with a square root and a fraction? So what is the square root of 1 over 9? When you see a problem like this, you can think of it as having two different parts. So for the numerator, you can say this is square root of 1. And for the denominator, you can think of this as square root of 9. And so you would work out what the square root of 1 is, and also work out what the square root of 9 is. So let's do the numerator first. What is the square root of 1? Meaning, what times what gives me 1? We know that the answer is 1, because 1 squared equals to 1. Therefore, the square root of 1 is equal to 1. For the bottom part, where it has the square root of 9, what times what gives us 9? And the answer is 3. So 3 squared gives me 9. And therefore, the square root of 9 is equal to 3. This means that the square root of 1 over 9 is equal to 1 over 3. Next question, we have the square root of 1 over 64. So once again, separate this into two parts, square root of 1 for the numerator and square root of 64 for the denominator. And as we've solved previously above, we know that the square root of 1 is equal to 1. So we'll write 1. And for the bottom of 64, what times what gives us 64? And the answer is 8. So 8 squared equals to 64. Therefore, the square root of 64 is equal to 8. So the square root of 1 over 64 equals to 1 over 8. And last question, we have square root of 16 over 49. So square root of 16 over square root of 49. For square root of 16, what times what gives you 16? And the answer is 4. 4 squared makes 16. And therefore, the square root of 16 equals to 4. And for the bottom of square root of 49, what times what gives you 49? And the answer is 7. And so 7 squared makes 49. And so the square root of 49 equals to 7. So the square root of 16 over 49 equals to 4 over 7. I hope you found today's lesson on square roots and square numbers helpful. Like and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.